Hey, Mike, how are you?
I'm swell. How you doing, Bob?
I am doing great. Welcome everybody to the Pop Culture SquadCast Live. We are live on a Thursday, and we're excited about it. Even though I didn't look at the schedule, and the Ravens are playing right now, so if you're not watching the Ravens and watching us instead, I'm extremely thankful because I wish I was watching the Ravens instead of watching me. So, in the meantime, we are here. We are live. We have a great guest tonight. I'm super excited about it. We're going to talk about his latest adventures and ventures. We're going to talk about a bunch of other things that's going on in the world of comics and where we are. I, however, feel we should start with the world we live in today. Is that who is that who just passed by?
That's Penny. She's
Hi, Penny. Penny wants to hear.
sitting on top of a box of candy right now.
Yeah, Penny wants to hear this too. So, the results of a couple of days ago, which if you're watching us, please go back. We did have a podcast that went live on 2 nights ago. It was a great conversation with John Dunning, so please go check that out. We encourage you to do that. When I woke up in the morning on Wednesday, I feel the best words for me were, or the best word to describe me is disillusioned.
Disillusioned.
Because I was under the illusion that Americans would vote for a woman, and that was an illusion.
Oh, that's just one of many things that Americans won't vote for.
Sure. You have the platform, you have the box. I'd like to hear your opinions on where we are.
Well, first of all, I congratulate you for waking up Wednesday morning. It was almost nighttime when I woke up on Wednesday.
I woke up at 4:30 and I looked at my phone and then I couldn't go back to sleep.
See, I woke up around 4:32, but it was p.m. It wasn't, as Bob knows, I keep weird hours and I generally don't go to sleep before 3 or 4 in the morning. I was not watching television after it made no more sense to watch television. And it was frustrating. I wish I could say it was surprising. I saw it as the election as the last chance for America because, if you're voting for the convicted rapist, then you know what you're getting. I mean, you know exactly what you're getting. And a majority of American voters said, yep, that bastard's for me. And now we're getting reports just 48 hours later, less than 48 hours later, of all these, women being harassed with the phrase, your body, my choice, your body, my choice, which is a very nice cliched way of saying, yeah, I can rape you whenever the fuck I want. It's not going to be good for those folks. It's already worse for transsexuals, particularly transsexual women, at least a dozen of whom have been already thrown off of their teams since the election, which is amazing because the rapist in chief has not even taken office. So we're going to have a very interesting 4 years ahead of us with Trump, who I suspect will serve briefly and then be followed by Vance, who will make all women wear red robes.
I did find. Thank you for that. I'm not going to. I'm leaving that part to you because I don't want to spend too much time on it. Although we're not. We're disappointed. Let's put it that way. I did see a hilarious thing where there was a great political cartoon that came out last week where women were walking into a voting booth with the handmade garb, garb on, and come out ungarbed as normal looking people.
Yeah, that was Mike Wakovich.
Yes, and it was retweeted by Margaret Atwood. And then somebody tried to mansplain her on what The Handmaid's Tale really is about.
Yeah, that's great. You see, that in and of itself just explains everything you need to know about why so many white men and, let's face it, Latino men are such incredible fucking assholes. I hate having to survive in their wake because, people will look at me as indicative of the enemy.
Sure. And I'm in the boat with you.
Yeah, I know.
Unfortunately, well, what we were going to do here, and here's the last thing. I do want to thank everybody for watching. We are going to get Dean in as soon as he gets here because I want to talk to him about stuff. So thanks for being here. We have some comic book stuff to get to, but I really want to say, one of the things I was in a bad state, and also I recommend people go and read Mark Fishman's excellent piece on popculturesquad.com. He really talks about the five stages of grief and how it affects you in this time. And it's a great piece. I really enjoyed it. But in my...
He and Kathy have a brood of boys, one girl, lots of boys,
Yes.
So for Mark to focus like that,
yeah, no,
that's
it's
great.
important.
He's seeing the bigger picture.
One of the things that I kind of, struggled with for a moment or two, or an hour or whatever is, why are we doing this? Why are we here? Why do you and I spend our Tuesday and Thursday nights and spend multiple countless hours during the week, keeping Pop Culture Squad up and boosting, our presence and editing and all the things we do. And I'm like, nobody cares. It doesn't matter. Nothing matters. And I thought about that and I felt that way for a minute, but God damn it, I love comics and I love the community that we've built and I love the things that we're doing, and we're going to keep together and we're going to keep talking about it. We're going to keep lifting each other up, and we're going to keep doing it. We have to do that. It's the only thing we can do.
Well, yes. I mean, let us remember that cultural movements of all sorts exceed one's personal politics. Now, there are other limitations that can be put into place, censorship, for example, which I'm sure will be a threat over the next few years. But the fact of the matter is, we are in a position of responding, not creating.
Sure.
Because creating change right now involves a real commitment to using arms. And I don't see that as a good thing yet. It may come to that.
Well,
he said
He said ominously. All right.
Yeah, I mean, look at history.
Sure.
Which is something that a lot of people refuse to do. They can't be bothered. History, this has all happened before repeatedly. And you study history and you realize that these things happen and there are things that can be done about it. Right now, we're in that reaction phase, and there's nothing to react to until January 20th. And that's the main reason why I'm sitting here in Connecticut and not in Ontario.
Okay. All right. Hold on to that Ontario thing. We're going to get to that.
Okay.
In the meantime, let's talk about some comics quick. The last, or the third, let's put it this way, the third of the absolute debuts have occurred at DC Comics. It's been a thing we've been talking about over the past month and prior to that, but Absolute Superman came out yesterday. Have you read it yet?
I have not. I read a couple of this week's books.
What did you read?
I read
Batgirl.
Yes, and JSA 1.
I read both of those as well. I really liked Batgirl.
I really liked Batgirl. It set up a lot of really interesting stuff. JSA
Totally
1,
gets totally gets the vibe, totally gets the right tone.
Absolutely.
That is Cass Kane. It was really good.
Absolutely right. A total agreement. The problem with JSA 1 is, well, it's twofold. First of all, it wasn't the first issue. You're in the middle of a story, and that's kind of tough. For a first issue, you kind of expect people to like give you a starting point. It says number one. I'm not sure this really has that. You can work your way through it, but I'm not sure it really has that. Number two, it really doesn't define who they want the Justice Society to be. Is it just the new kids? Is it the new kids and the old characters who refuse to retire, which is totally understandable because
Nope, people can retire.
me too. I'm sorry?
People can retire. It's all right.
People can retire. Oh, yes, absolutely. I mean, I'm semi-retired and it's driving me crazy.
I will tell you, I'm gonna give this shout out as well. If you go to the Comics Beat, there's a really good article by Zach Quaintance, who's a friend of the show and a friend of mine, and he really talked about the DC books this week, and he mentioned all three of the books that we just mentioned. And then him and I texted earlier today, talking about them each. We agree that we really liked Batgirl, and JSA seemed muddy and unsure of itself.
Yes. I understand the pressures that they were under to produce that issue because the 12-parter that preceded it ended about 6 or 8 months late.
Yes.
I would have pushed JSA 1 back as well. But I don't know. To my generation of comics fans, those of us who still survive, Justice Society is very important. When I came into the comics fandom, everybody, this is back in the 1820s, everybody was reading All-Star Comics, old All-Star Comics, and old EC Comics and Carl Barks stuff and Will Eisner. That was it. That was it. That was, if you didn't read that stuff, you had nothing to talk about. And that passion for all of those characters, but certainly for the Justice Society, has lived on. I even had the opportunity to co-edit a Justice Society miniseries, which I'm very proud of and I really enjoyed. This doesn't live up to that standard, but it has a good crew, really decent people working on the book, people who really know how to tell a story. So my suspicion is that this one was done under some time pressure, possibly just waiting for the other series to come in and finish so they could begin. I don't know, but it reads that
way. Yeah, I mean, it's a good story. There has a bones of a good story.
Right. They're setting up what could be a good story.
Exactly. And the setup is good. There's a lot of soap opera-y stuff that I don't care for that goes on, that is uncomfortable in the fact that, like, I feel like I should have had more warning or setup about what this is. Like, I feel like I'm walking into somebody's husband and wife argument and I don't even know why, and I don't particularly care at the moment yet. Right. So I mean, there's some of that. The art is really good. The first, the intro is kind of very generically intro-y, and then the first action scene I liked, and then we got into some weird stuff that got murky and muddy, and I hope for more. I hope for better.
Yeah, I mean, not enough stuff was established. The story itself going forward was barely hinted at, and to me, that's
right. It seemed a lot of it's, and again, it is a great cast. Jeff Lemire is a really good writer, and he knows how to write a team book.
Absolutely.
So, and the art is really great. So hopefully it's good. That, like I said, Batgirl is really good. I like that. I read a couple of other books so far this week that I liked from Dark Horse called Living Hell, which is by Caitlin Yarsky, which
Mhm.
very good. And I read Kelly Sue's new book FML. It's Kelly Sue and David Lopez, and I like that a lot. So I want to talk for a second, give my 2 cents on Absolute Superman. We talked about that. You haven't read it yet. I will tell you I have a couple of nitpicks with it. However, I will say that it's probably my favorite of the Absolutes so far of the three. It seemed the most it seemed the one that is easiest. Like it held to, like the whole concept is thumbing your nose at tradition to a certain degree, and let's make things different. Let's take things away and make it different. And there are some things that the twists and the little changes I think worked well. I think I've seen this story before, but I thought it was good. I thought it was interesting. I'm definitely interested in episode 2, issue 2. But here's the thing that I've come down to, and this is where I feel about the Absolute Universe. I feel like the Absolute Universe is the people in charge of that they want to write their own stories. It's similar to Todd Phillips's Joker movies. They want to tell a story, and they convince DC to give them money to slap their name on it and then tell their own story.
Wow, you out cynicaled me.
That's hard.
That's not easy. So my hat's off to you, as you can see. I was surprised to see when I sort of put the stack of comics out that I only read 2. I had more time, but I went for Justice Society because of my ancient fanboyism, and also because I remember the miniseries, the 12-parter, because it just ended about an hour ago. And I went for Batgirl because it looked like the most interesting. It was very interesting. It was very good. So, as you had said, what surprised me was I didn't feel a compulsion to immediately check out Absolute.
Well, that's that.
I'm sure it's a very good comic. It's got a good pedigree. It looks great, and I'll probably be reading it tonight unless something untoward happens.
I mean, there's one twist that I wouldn't have. I would not have made the decision that they made. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. I would have gone in a different direction on one thing, but you'll find that out. You'll find out there, and you'll tell me what you think. But it's a really good week for new comics. If you haven't gone to the comic shop yet, it's Thursday already. You should have gone, but if not, please do go to your local comic shop. There are some really, really good new comics coming out this week. I have a lot more to read. I have read a bunch. And that's exciting. We're going to get to our guest. Dean's in the green room, but before we get there, we want to talk about a little bit more. Bring everybody up just a little bit more. For those who watched the show, you would have seen us last season talking about the fact of Mike being a huge fan of the Professional Women's Hockey League. He mentioned it a few times.
I am. It's true.
Absolutely. It is they're coming back soon. The first games are the Saturday after Thanksgiving. I don't know exactly where they're going to be, but I know you can. They are definitely being broadcast in Canada. I don't know about the United States, and I think they might be on YouTube or later or something like that. But
last year they were on YouTube, and they have their own channel on YouTube.
Yeah. So hopefully that will be the case again, and you can watch them. But one of the things that was interesting last year about them was that there was very nondescript. They kind of didn't have team names. They didn't have really logos and stuff, but that has all changed. And right. I want everybody to get excited because this is the new look for the Professional Women's Hockey League. They have great team names. They have great logos around them. I think they're fantastic. I'm excited for them. They're going to have bright colors and their home uniforms. What do you think?
I think you left out the best part.
The
best part is they have great people on the ice.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I did. You're absolutely right.
I did not see a single PWHL game, and I'm not the world's biggest sports nut, but I did not see a single one of those games that I didn't find fantastic. And I will tell you why. Because there's only like these 8 teams or 7 teams. Or whatever it is.
There's only 6.
6. I used to be able to count to 6. I'm blaming that on Trump too. Anyway, when I started watching hockey, I was about 0 years old. My father was a hockey fan. Only a few games were on television, but we did have television back then, and there were only 6 NHL teams. So we had some great players on the ice. Today, there are many more great players available in the pool, in the overall pool, because, we've got hockey in high schools in America now, let alone colleges, and we're playing hockey in places like Las Vegas and other joints where it doesn't get below like 92 degrees, which is insane to me, but okay, they're playing hockey. That's cool because I like hockey. These women are fantastic. If you've never seen hockey before, at least during the first season, the people who are doing the play-by-play and the color, the only color people I like, they will explain as they go along without patronizing you, and they're not going to interrupt the action to explain what's happening, but you will not walk away going, well, what the hell was that? You'll find out if you're not familiar with the sport. It was the most exciting thing I'd seen on TV in a long, long time.
So I agree with you. One of the things I'm looking forward to. I love the names. We have
me too.
We have the Boston Fleet, which let me tell you, when whoever was designing that logo said we're gonna grab Connecticut too by putting that sideways Hartford Whalers logo up there. And then there's the Minnesota Frost. The New York Sirens. Listen, that's some design in that logo.
That is my team by virtue of the fact that that's closest to where I live, which has no relation to anything other than it's got the word New York in the title. Mm-hmm. But I love the logo, I love the name, and I love all of the others too. I'm happy for them because, let's face it, in sports America, we rely on merch. Not just all this other stuff, but you can't have merch without a team name and a logo.
I'm just saying that, I'm just saying that the Professional Women's Hockey League did a little bit more research and spent a little bit more time in their logo than certain other comic companies that we know about that we've been laughing at recently, because these are good logos.
That was great. That was great. You made my day. You're right. It's a weird comparison, but you're absolutely right.
All right. We've made him wait long enough. He's probably drawing like page 15 of Chess Face.
He's already finished 2 books and has started another. Well,
that's probably true. Dino's in the house. I love Dean Haspiel. He's a brother to me, and he is a good friend. And he's been on the show almost as much as I think pretty much the most. He's also a listener or watcher, and we're gonna bring him in right now. Hey, Dino.
Hey, Dean.
Good morning, America.
Yeah, really. Yeah.
I dug deep for that video.
Wow, you went like talk
I
about
went-
deep cuts.
I went deep.
There is some stuff.
Well, the
I
thing
don't
is
even know
that
if I have copies of.
you had the video that I had for you was like from a very early, like second or third show or something like that. So it was a different software.
Right.
I couldn't edit it. I had to
Right.
make a new one, so I went all after it.
Nuts, and that's still just the tip of the iceberg, which is
It
crazy.
is. I left a lot out.
And for a guy like me that's never really had a hit, like I have hopped around so many different projects, one-offs, but I don't have my Jim Aparo run. I don't have my Kurt Swan run. Hi, Sherry. Big Biz. Hey, what's up, Big Biz with a wig? Big Biz is a comedian, and he's actually writing chest face jokes for my Zoom party and
I'm excited.
possibly something
Oh,
else.
great.
But yeah, no, that's nuts to see all that, and yet still, like, I always feel like I'm 1 month away from living in the streets.
No, I hate
I think that's more true than ever for everyone.
Listen,
Yeah, you may want to have that resolved before the middle of January.
yeah, my
Right.
problems happen after that.
Yeah. Yeah.
We'll talk.
That's
We can talk
things
about
gonna-
all that offline. But in the meantime, I want to talk about chest face. If you don't mind, we're going to play your intro just to give everybody else an idea about what it's like from the Kickstarter. So give me a sec here, and we're going to share this tab. And here we go.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dean Haspiel, and I'm about to launch my new Kickstarter comic book. It's called Chest Face. It's my 4th crowdfunding campaign, and it's another Dean Haspiel deep cut alongside comics like The Red Hook, Billy Dogma and Jane Legit, and COVID Cop. Here's some images of Chest Face with his new crime-fighting partner, Meridian Prime. And yeah, he's about twice the size of most people. He's been mutated into this guy where his face is on his chest. And yeah, he's kind of like an homage or a cross between Jack Kirby's The Thing from the Fantastic Four and a character named Arnim Zola, who is Captain America villain. And yeah, he lives in the city, and runs around doing stand up, trying to complete his first hour for his comedy special, and he's caught up in this evil corporation's mad scheme to create a super soldier, and classic superhero stuff. And he and his new pal Meridian Prime are out to basically clobber this corporation and stop them from mutating people against their will. There's a lot more to this comic book than what I've just shown you, obviously, and I want to save that for when you actually get it in your hands and read it. And speaking of, that's what we're here for, is to have you help me realize this dream of publishing this comic book and getting it into your hands at your home. Just check out some of the perks on the tiers, the reward tiers. You can see behind me, so these are some of my other Kickstarter comics that you have generously helped me out with. And yeah, I'm really excited to get this going and, get cranking on finishing the last couple of pages and making this comic book happen. I hope you guys dig Chest Face.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
When I did those videos,
there's a nod to MODOK that needs to be stated, I think.
there is a nod to MODOK. Somebody said MODOK as well, but MODOK's just a big head with little arms
Right.
and legs.
Right.
Oh,
it's not the same.
He's more akin to like Gossamer from Bugs Bunny. Remember Gossamer, the big?
Yeah,
big
absolutely. That's who he is.
Probably the worst named of the Looney Tunes, but a great character.
Yeah, what is a gossamer? Was that based on something else, or they just made that up, or what?
I think, yeah, my understanding, and there are experts out there, and I'm not one of them, is that he was totally created and up there, and then somebody said, "Cool, what's the guy's name?"
Yeah.
And right off the top of their head, I don't know if it was Chuck Jones or who said Gossamer.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know that was the character's name until after I found out until after the Marvel character was known to me. Like there's a
There's a
Marvel
Marvel
character.
gossamer.
Yeah, they were in the New Mutants. It's one of the. It's like a fairy. It's a fairy type character in the New Mutants.
Is
Like
that a
late.
superhero? Is that a superhero name for the character?
Yeah.
Gossamer. So then it must imply something. And I'm trying to think, what is it? I guess I have never looked up the word gossamer. I just see it as a name.
It means something along those lines. It's appropriate. I think Louise created him, so I think Louise created him or her.
Well, that's nice.
Anyway, all right. So I've read you've put out there the first 6 pages. There are plenty of places people can go to read the first 6 pages. Dude, this is good. It's so good. I'm so looking forward to this book. And we haven't had you on since I think before COVID Cop came out. I think we had you on before COVID Cop out. Did we have? I don't think we had you on for the other show, for the other book. Did we?
Oh, maybe
We
not.
did. Maybe we did. I don't remember. But
I assume we do. I assume we have.
We do too, but I don't remember 100%.
I thought we had you on when you did the book about you.
Yeah, we did. Okay, so we did that.
That's what the Red Hook. Yeah.
And listen, just so anybody knows, when Dean has a new book coming out, he's coming on the show. So like that's how it goes. But
I appreciate that. Thank you.
It's the only reason why I support these Kickstarters.
So Dean can come on the show?
That's right.
Okay.
I appreciate you too.
He feels obligated to do so.
I mean, so one of the things, I made that, sizzle reel as Big Biz mentioned. And someone at our age, you're getting better.
Oh God, thank you.
There are, and I can go into the details, but I don't want to, but there are very specific reasons why I say that. And it has to do with the way you're telling stories. It has to do with the lines that you're drawing. It has to do with everything you're doing in a comic. And this book, every one of these, Dean Haspiel deep cuts just keeps building on each other in terms of quality and the storytelling and what's going on in it. And I'm super excited for this one.
Well, I really appreciate that. And I as a creator, I can see when I do something I feel I've done well, but always you're just like, oh, I didn't do it good enough, or if only I'd done this. You see all your mistakes, right? As the creator, the originator. So it's really hard for me to sometimes appreciate what actually I did lay down in print and get into your hands, right? And all you guys see is the amalgamation of writing and drawing and printing and color and lettering and the package, right? And as I do when I receive people's art or comics or movies or books or music or whatever, right? Like I don't pick it apart necessarily. Once in a while, because we've been all at this for a while. Mike, you've edited so many comics and seen like the origins of an idea, right? That's been produced. So what happens after a while. I mean, you ever watch a movie or a mystery, and in the first 5 minutes you're trying to figure out who done it, kind of thing. We can't help ourselves. I mean, that's true for people who don't craft things as well. It's part of the fun of things. So
yes, we are really lousy people to watch TV with.
Oh, absolutely. We ruin everything. We ruin everything. And we're spoiling without spoiling. We're like, oh, this is what I think, because we can see how things are crafted now, right? Which is I love movies, I love plays, I love comic books, and I can kind of figure out certain things as I'm enjoying it. But I've
But
left music alone because I want music to still be magical for me, you know?
Right.
but it's
Right.
here. I want to tie it on that because it's important because I do the same thing, and we kind of do it, and it's not. It doesn't by thinking that through. It's not. It doesn't take away from the experience for us as viewers because you say you look at it and you're like, okay, well, here's the dilemma. There are
Right.
there are a certain number of ways out of this dilemma,
Right.
and the writer is going to use one of those.
Right.
And if they come up with something that's completely outside of that realm, we're going to evaluate it. Like, let's say they're going to pick one of them, like, okay, that was a good choice, and we're going to make that judgment. But let's say they pick something that's not there. It's either going to be because they shouldn't have done that because it doesn't work, or
Right.
they're really going to impress that watcher.
They'll impress really because it was there in front of you and you didn't see it. Now, if it's there in front of you, you didn't see it, and that's awesome, right? That's a lot of fun. Like, oh, you pulled off a really cool trick. Two things. Mark Waid says that when he was writing Daredevil, he would end on a cliffhanger, and even he didn't know how he was going to get out of it. And if
I've
he
heard him
didn't
say
know,
that.
you couldn't know either, right? And then you had to figure out how to get him out of the thing, right? The flip side is I enjoy this TV show called Murders in the Building, right?
Yeah,
You know,
only murders in the building.
and
But that
only
is
Murders
a
in the
show
Building.
for you.
It's what?
It's a show for you. I love the show.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm spellbound by it. I'm astonished by it. But that's your turf. That's
That's
your
my turf.
back.
That's old
Yeah.
school. Yeah, I grew up in the Upper West Side, so that's 86th Street, and
Yeah.
I get it. So, but I did notice in the newest season, without spoiling, that they did something that I think a lot of mysteries are starting to do more than ever before, or maybe it's an old trick, which is a little annoying, which is to reveal who the killer is, let's say, and you were thinking maybe it's this one, that one, whatever. But because they told you nothing about that one character is how the reason why they are the character, because now they're going to tell you everything that how the character is the killer. And so it's almost less fun because you're thinking, well, maybe this person has some agendas, and that's what they're doing. They're seeding it so that's making you think that way, right? But then when they literally pull out the hat, oh, it's a shared one, yeah. When they pull out it feels like they pull out the hat because they just buried it the entire time for like 9 episodes to then reveal this almost background character in a way, you know?
That's what I'm
So,
talking about. That's exactly
yeah, that's what you were talking about, Bob. Like that can be a little annoying sometimes, you
Sure.
know?
Yeah, that's true. But people who are in the professional storytelling business and have been in it for any length of time, we are walking spoiler alerts. It is so hard to unplug that part of our brains when we're watching something because that's our worldview. So I think we should start a charity for people in the storytelling business to help us rid ourselves of all of that baggage.
I agree. So Bob, but just to go all the way around this to say that if I appear to be only getting better as I get older, which I hope that's true, because I feel the same way about Walter Simonson,
Sure.
Howard Chaykin. I mean, as much as we love and how ahead of its time American Flag still is, one of the top 10 comics of all time, Howard is just next level. I mean, Frank Miller, the way he draws, I know it's controversial for some people. I love it. He's earned the way he has evolved in his artwork, right? But I would say that if there's something I would acknowledge to my current quote Dean Haspiel deep cuts work, is that I'm taking more time to draw and craft 24 pages. When I was doing the Red Hook for Webtoon, I had to do a bunch of pages a month and crank it out. And when I made that kind of analogy to not having my Kurt Swan or my Jim Aparo run, I wouldn't have been good enough to do my Jim Aparo or Chris one. Those guys were amazing and cranked it out on a monthly basis. I'm not a monthly artist, and I can see it when I look back at my Red Hook stuff. And I had a little more time, I think, with the Fox. When I think about my longer runs of whatever I've done, and then of course when I'm working on a graphic novel, we're talking about 120 pages in a year or so, right? So, but right now I've slowed down, and in slowing down, maybe that time is gifting me a little more prowess.
But you're also working in a newer environment. Used to be, even if it's webtoons, you had deadlines, you had to meet certain things. Here, now, by doing a social funded project, you can set up your own schedule in advance. You can give yourself whatever rope you need. That doesn't mean you're objective enough to do that all the time. It doesn't mean it's always going to work out. But it is a luxury that we didn't have in the comics medium before.
Yeah, and I think that's the other part of it. That so Mike brings up a good point. Like you have a different schedule. You can set your own schedule, but the thing is that you have consistently been cranking out, and I don't mean that in the deadline type of way, but you are meeting that challenge. You are getting there. It's very easy for people to be working in the distribution method that you're working in and get lazy or get sidetracked or distracted and not make it. And listen, let me tell you, the one of the things that's helping you, and I hope people continue to notice that when there's a Dean Haspiel deep cut, you're getting it when you expect to get it. That's one of the things you've been excellent with, and it helps.
Right. Well, no, I appreciate that. And when you said the word luxury, it's true. Like, as much as I'm like subsisting on, as we all of us do, subsisting on small means, there is a luxury aspect, because I can understand when people are like, well, I got to go to my day job and you get to draw comic books. But I'm like, that is my day job. It's my night job. It's my 7 days a week job. It's my weekend, And the other thing I was noticing recently, which kind of was sobering, was, let's say I was able to crank out, draw a 120-page graphic novel in a year. Let's just say I could do that, right? And that's just 10 pages a month, but 10 pages of writing and coloring and whatever, and I could maybe do more than that if push came to shove. But I'm astounded how in the last 2 years I have drawn less than I have in 20 some odd years, if that makes sense. Like, I was producing a lot more for the first 20 some odd years of my freelance career, right? Now I'm not drawing as many pages. I'm doing a lot more writing, because I like to write plays. I like to do stuff that you guys haven't seen yet, and who knows what I'm doing. I mean, I already wrote the second COVID Cop a year and a half ago, but then I decided to do Billy Dogma, Red Hook, and Chestface now. And then I'll get back to it. And I really do love this character, and I love what I'm doing with this and where it's going. And it gets bananas, trust me, which is in a good way, right? But like, I'm drawing less, but hopefully the quality of what I'm drawing is better because of the time I'm allowing myself, to at the end of the day, as we get older, we're like, what do I want to spend my time doing? If I'm not going to be hanging out with people and going and taking pictures of myself at my legs at the beach holding a drink in my hand, like, if I'm not going to be doing that, then what am I making that is worth me spending that time? And hopefully something that will, I always say, I'm trying to make something you didn't know you wanted.
Yeah,
that's right.
Right.
That's right. And I think COVID played a role in changing those models. It came along at the same time as crowdfunding did. I am curious about the opposite, which nobody here can address, including me. Let's say Jim Aparo, who did a full page every day, pencils, inks, and lettering every day. Or Steve Ditko, who could grind out a 6-page story overnight I know that because I was involved in one of those, and he's done it many times. Kirby, so on and so forth. What if all of those guys, Frank Robbins for crying out loud, what if those guys were working under these circumstances today? What would they do when they sit down and say, I could take some more time and do this and do that? And of course, we can't answer that question. Nobody can answer that.
You get Walter.
I do have a hypothesis about a part of the answer, which is, and this is something I identified while driving in a car with my studio mate, which was, I was like, the guys who wrote and drew, okay, Jim Aparo, I don't think he wrote anything. Did he drew? He was the artist, right?
Yeah.
Oh, he was the artist. Yeah.
He was the artist. So he needed a script, let's say, to be able to show a story and co-author in that way. But like a Jack Kirby, Steve Ditko, what were they doing? They were reading newspapers. They were listening to the radio and TV. They were listening to the news in order to activate their imagination so they could respond and create something that was like, because the stories they were crafting were something that needed to sell on a newsstand, a lot of copies, of something in order to get another monthly job. I do wonder, I guess Steve Ditko is Mr. A, would be his indie comic, right?
Yeah.
Wouldn't it,
sure.
For argument's sake? I don't know. Did Kirby do his indie comic? Was Captain Victory and Silver Stars? No, I don't think so. I think he was trying to sell an idea, In fact, that started out as an animation idea, if I'm correct, and one was a screenplay,
In Jack's case, it's impossible to tell because the guy was, he was the Kleenex box of ideas. You pull one out, another one pops up.
Here's another idea.
And they're all fascinating. It's hard to speculate what sort of impact this might have, but they're storytellers. Every one of these people are storytellers.
Oh, absolutely. And the conundrum.
And you use that as the foundation. You tell the story.
Tell a story, but it's also about the thing I'm adding to the quotient, to the is I don't know if I don't know if I've ever attached money, and even now doing crowdfunding, to my ideas. When I mean money, I mean, I know this will sell, this will be big, right? I'm sitting there in my corner thinking this will blow up. This will be this is how I'll show them. This is how I'll make money while I sleep. And I've never really attached the idea of Hollywood, let's call it. I will go Hollywood with this idea, And maybe that's been a failure of my career, is that I didn't think bigger than me paying next month's rent, right? With the ideas I've come up with. But just and because I'm thinking out loud, crowdfunding, you would think, oh, Dean, well, why aren't you're trying to get the most people interested, not only your friends, family, and peers, but strangers who are going to hopefully discover an idea. And I think most people that are, pledging on my crowdfund are supporting Dean Haspiel first, idea second. I don't know how many people are like, I need a chest face.
There's a certain percentage that you're correct about. There is some organic. There's a decent amount of organic growth that is people finding your idea. And part of that, unfortunately, is the world we live in, where we're responsible for our own marketing and how that goes. Speaking of which, and I want to get back to Chestface. I really want to talk about it.
Sorry.
No, not at all. Like this. Okay. So you have reached out to the world and said, hey, everybody, why don't you draw Chestface?
Right.
And they don't know anything about it, but you've gotten a great response.
It was really fun to see people's interpretation.
Listen, I tried. I took a shot at it today. I was gonna do it. And I didn't have the time, and let me tell you, it was not good. But I thought about it.
I'm sure it's great, man. I'm sure it's great. Like he's pretty easy to figure out, to be honest. Sure. And then Bob.
But yeah, I mean, I love this. I mean, how has that been? Like people just reaching back and saying, here's here's your guy, with this.
Well, first of all,
knife
it's
and-
amazing and to see that. In fact, I did that with COVID Cop. My first campaign, I either somebody drew a COVID Cop on their own, and somebody was
Right.
like, "Oh my God, draw a COVID Cop," but this one, I made kind of the mistake by saying, if you draw and tag me and the campaign, I will send you, I will draw you an
That was a
original
mistake.
COVID
Whatever
Cop.
it is, whatever you said, that was a mistake. You say,
I
I
know.
will reshare it. Is what you should have
Right,
said.
right.
That's what I should have
will
said. But
give you-
but here, I know you guys, here's some video. I have been drawing in between pages and other things a whole bunch, as you can see, a whole bunch of chest faces that are going to be going out in the mail like tomorrow or this weekend or Monday, pretty soon. And it doesn't stop, man. It's like, in fact, I was talking to someone else, and yet, yes, there's a penis on almost every one of these chest faces because he's naked. I was addressing the elephant in the room. Sorry to put it like that. Where he's loosely inspired by my favorite Marvel character, The Thing, okay, and
Oh, I
Arnim
know
Zola,
that.
as I mentioned, right?
Yeah.
And so but the thing about The Thing is
He's got
a
underwear on.
penis, right? He has a penis. It's not a speed bump, right? It's not a Ken doll. So
Right, but he's wearing underwear.
but he's wearing underwear. And in fact, one of the people who drew chest face, yeah, I covered him up there.
See, that
One of
was
the
the
people who
question.
drew
Did you
chest-
ever talk? All right. Did you ever talk to Cassidy about what he did with his thing? Because he didn't wear clothes.
That's right. I never talked to him about
That would
that.
have been a great conversation.
That was a great conversation. I mean, but it's funny. And speaking of, because you guys were talking about the absolute DC Comics, right?
Yeah.
I wanted to show you a sneak peek. Just because it's fun to play with, whenever you come up with a campaign, there are certain things that trend during the campaign. And right now everyone's talking about absolute fallen DC Comics. And I'm curious. And in fact, Mike would know this, and Bob, you know this too. It's just another way to sell comics, and I think that's fun. But whatever, I don't care about continuity. If it's a good story,
Sure.
it sounds like the JSA was a little bit of a stumble out the gate. I'm curious to read that.
Yeah.
But
We all
whatever,
know.
have fun. I'm a little tired of continuity comics, to be honest. As I get
Oh,
older,
sure.
just show me a good
I'm not a
story.
slave to it at all. I
Yeah,
want
yeah,
to know
yeah.
the story, but I don't want you to. Here's the other part, and we'll get. I'm going to give you just 1 second. My issue is if you want to tell a story, I want to hear the story. Tell me a story. When you have to drape it in somebody else's clothes, then it's not that person's story. And that's where I get a little uncomfortable with it.
Well, it's funny because
Continuity
go ahead.
can
Mike,
be
sorry.
a terrible, terrible barrier to storytelling.
Sure.
It could also be a wonderful thing. It's just another tool. Dick Giordano used to say that he was all for continuity, but you should never let it get in the way of a good story. And I agree. The problem is that what we have now are so many alternate versions of the same characters. How many Green Lanterns are there? How many Spider-Men are there? Okay, fine. The ultimate or the absolute books that I read, that was your Wonder Woman and Batman, I thought were very, very good books done by very professional, experienced people. I just don't know why it's Batman and Wonder Woman, because
And it's really hard. I was gonna say it's really hard to come up, even in continuity, with another issue of Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. But
Right, sure.
like I was saying before, Kirby and Ditko and a whole slew of writers alone were responding to the world through those characters. I believe, and then once in a while they throw them off the cliff and have them go on an adventure in a very odd, weird way. I remember my favorite character in Marvel's The Thing, right? And I remember when he finally got his own series. I mean, after Marvel 2-in-1, right? And John Byrne and Ron Wilson decided we're going to do a series, and he went off planet. He went off planet pretty soon. And then I think he also could like blink his eyes like I Dream a Genie or something and just turn into, Ben Grimm, the human form. And it was very strange. And that's not necessarily what I would have done had I been given the book, right? But in hindsight, I cherish those comics as well because you just went off reservation literally, So, and just to give you guys another sneak peek, here's my absolute chest face, right? Which when you get really close,
let me bring it center.
it becomes really uncomfortable.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. Listen, I'm just trying to have fun here, like the point is to have fun.
I want, first of all, if anybody's watching, I'm not, if anybody, people who are watching, if you go into the comments section, you'll see a link to the Kickstarter campaign that's going on right now. It ends on the 22nd. Is that right? Or
yeah, November 22nd. That's right.
Which is, the anniversary of Kennedy's assassination, but that's
really,
it is.
It's also the anniversary of the first episode of Doctor Who. Let's focus on the positive.
Okay,
you're a nerd. You're such a nerd.
He is a nerd.
and just to give
I am a nerd, of course. That I'm paid to be, but that's an event. The creation of something that grew on its own to become even bigger and better than what it started out to be. Can you imagine what the Fantastic Four, what the Thing would be like today if Jack were still around and had been doing all 1,500 issues?
Oh my God, I can't even imagine. I don't know.
That's right, but you'd kill for the opportunity to find out.
Oh my God, absolutely. I mean, the originator. It's all been fan fiction after Lee and Kirby, anyway. And Ditko, but ultimately, right?
Actually, I think they're doing a very nice job right now. It's a really nice.
Oh no, I'm enjoying the Fantastic. Listen, there are two comics I buy every month that were there before I was born and will be there after the day I die, and that's the Fantastic Four and Spider-Man. I buy those books no matter what. And then I'm a Marvel fan first, then I went over DC, and obviously there's going to be a Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman. I mean, there's going to be they're going to continue to keep going, and I've enjoyed the evolution, and of course, there's my Fantastic Four that I grew up with, and Spider-Man, and this is just I'm just keeping up with it, just
Some people's Fantastic Four has Spider-Man in it.
That's a good point.
Wait, you mean where he? What are you talking about, Bob?
There was the Hulk and Thor and
Hulk you mean when Simonson and Art Adams did 3 issues? Oh, okay. Well, I mean, that was a lot of fun. Wolverine, I think.
Yeah, Wolverine,
Hulk,
Spider-Man, and Ghost Rider.
Maybe Ghost Rider.
Yeah, I think it was Ghost Rider. Yeah.
So
I remember Spider-Man.
I enjoyed that story. I enjoyed that one.
That was a great story. And I remember when Spider-Man tried to join the Fantastic Four and couldn't.
Yeah, well,
right?
Listen, that story has so many legs. Like there's a Spider-Man skin in almost every Spider-Man game where he's wearing a Fantastic Four uniform and a bag on his head.
And a bag on his head. It's awesome. That's why. And I need to officially state something here, which is, the Spider-Verse where there's a billion Spider-Men, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I doubt if you looked at in the background of the 1,000 Spider-Mans that are roaming, probably, for continuity, I have written and drawn a Spider-Man character in my Spider-Man story, an old dude, an old thief that puts on the costume the night that Peter Parker quits being Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And throws on the garbage can, and a thief who's running with stolen money and being chased by cops sees the costume and decides to put it on to do a fake out to the cop, but the cop sees the money bag. He's like, give me that money, and he pretends like he stole it from the thief and whatever. He loses the money, but then he realizes he has the costume, and his granddaughter, her favorite hero is Spider-Man, and she's dying. So I told this story And so I feel like I have also created another Spider-Man character who
Of course you have.
embodied,
That's a good story. It is a good story. Listen,
and it's yet to spin off into his own series.
yeah,
Although
not yet, soon.
Yeah, it will happen.
It's Absolute Spider-Man.
Yeah. I love the color in this on this page, and I know it's ridiculous because it's so simple, but like I love your shading, the way you're doing it. I think it's
so. I appreciate it. I don't color because I don't know how to color. I
know.
shade.
Right, I understand that, but I'm saying the shading that you do, the multi-tones, and the way that this front is going. Although I don't know how this guy sees through the sweatshirt, but we'll get to that. We'll get to that. Let me tell you, this book. These are the first 6 pages that are available that people can see. Like this panel right here, fucking great. It's just so great. It's just like, oh shit.
Just so silly. It's so silly.
It is. It's so good. It's so good. And then we get to this, and I mean, it's really good. That's
and before we get to lights out, and I appreciate it. And let me just say, I wrote and drew 6 pages for Charlie McKelvey, who was putting out a Titan-sized special of Spider Squirrel and Trash Panda from Zion Studios. And I was really digging what he was doing, this kind of like Marvel DC adjacent universe, right? Which is a lot of what indie guys do. That's what we're inspired by the comics we grew up loving and reading. So you kind of do your own universes, either because you couldn't get a gig working at Marvel and DC, or you didn't care about getting a gig and you wanted to do your own thing, right? So I was like, well, let me create a character for your universe. I did this 6 pages. I had so much fun. I was like, well, let me tell more of this guy's story and run a Kickstarter so that I could do a 24-page. And in my case, Mike and Bob, I'm sure you read these comics as well, but I know Mike did because he edited some. You used to get an epic story in 22 to 24 pages back in the day.
So
I know we've discussed this,
I want to, why 24?
I don't know. It could have been 20. It could be 28. It could be 22.
But does it
24
matter? I mean,
just sticks in my head.
No, 24 is a good number. I like that number. It's 70s. By the 80s, it was down to 22. But
we did a sort of an experiment with Grimjack and John Sable, more with Grimjack. When we were serializing it online, I told the guys, like, you don't have to do 8-page segments or a story with 22 pages or a story with 58 pages. Let's see where this story goes. And it didn't quite work. I think we had a little too much freedom there until Tim Truman, and Timothy is a genius when it comes to this, just sort of said, I got an idea in this story. Can we insert this sort of theme here? And the scene was fantastic. It was just wonderful. Tim does that a lot. And for the first time, and maybe the only time in my career, I said, sure, we can do that. We can slide that right in online. And it was cool. It worked out brilliantly, but it was the exception. And I'd love to see where that idea could go in the future.
Well, I also feel like constraints are helpful, just like deadlines are your friend.
sure.
Like constraints, like 24 pages, I got to figure this out, which means I'm
Well, I mean,
economizing,
you need to figure out like how many pieces of paper are going to be used to make this, because you're going to print it. So
that's another consideration is the cost, right? And so part of it's the cost, it's the production budget, all that stuff. And what can I do in a certain amount of time that I can then yield it, like you said, in a relatively, I will get the comic to you in your hands as promised. That's part of the deal. I am the store. I'm not only the creator, but I am the store. And, I have to deal with USPS and weather and mistakes and everything else.
Do you feel 24 pages is something that you feel comfortable with? I can tell the story. That's enough space for me. I don't need 32 or 28. Well,
I tailor it to that. I tailor to that. In other words,
that's fine.
I clearly can write longer, but
one
it
of
costs more.
the projects I'm working on, we kind of had to figure out what the issue size is, right? And because we had to break the story down, and that's a matter. And like one of the other things people need to think about, and this is for people who are into the industries, what are you putting on cover pages? Where are you putting stuff? So how much is the actual story? Like I've seen people who want to start on the inside cover as page 1 and never do that. Never, ever, ever, ever do that.
Well, unless you're Dell. When
Dell Close or Dell Publishing?
Nobody's Dell Close. You can be Dell Publishing. When we were doing American Flag, First Comic switched over to using advertising flats, an ad flat, which meant that for all the books in that month, the ads were going to be on pages 7 and 8 in all the books, same ad.
Right.
And that was okay. It saved us a lot of money at a time when we needed it. But I had to call up everybody and say, okay, this is what we're doing. So be aware that if you're going to do a page that you think is going to be on the right, it may not. Read my memo. And Chaikin's response was, "Oh, I never designed that way." And
he never designs what's going to look on the other, what's going to look at it.
Right. Yeah. Every page is unique and onto itself. Now, of course, we're talking about Howard's work for himself as a writer, not his picking up a script from somebody else. But that was true, and I've never decided whether this is a constraint, as you called it in the beginning, Bob, or whether it was just his approach to comics, every individual's approach to comics.
I always think about it.
All I know is that if you do a 2-page spread, you damn well better.
It's got to be on the right. Yeah. And I think that was another shortcut in a weird way, as elaborate as a 2-page spread can look like. Kirby, when he employed that, it was also a way to have a shorthand to do less pages of story for his 20-page Captain America comics and stuff. But I will say
That's true, but if you look at the early stuff, look at the 40s and 50s stuff, including the Archie stuff.
That's
Kirby did. Those are meticulously drawn, and there's a lot of stuff in there.
Oh, there's a lot going on,
and they are fabulous.
Yeah, But you see what I'm holding in my hand right now? See this?
A blank piece of paper.
A blank piece of paper.
Yes.
1985. I'm 17, going on 18. I'm going to Upstart, and there's Howard Chaykin at his art table with a piece of paper, and there's was it 20, 22? How many pages was Flag an issue?
Well, issue 1 I think was 28.
Yeah,
but then it went down like probably 20.
We did a backup. We got Alan Moore to write a nice backup.
So, but anyway, he would do squares, and the entire comic was laid out on one piece of 8.5 by 11 paper.
Yeah,
and I still can't. I've never done that.
That's insane.
It's insane. But he figured out the beats. You know what it was? It was the beats. He was figuring out beat, 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 beat. Let me tell the story. This is what I need to do. Little shorthand drawings. I'm much more elaborate when I do my layouts. So can you discuss the big reaction you got at Motor City Comic Con versus the reaction you just received in New York City? So it was weird. Bob, you were at Motor City, right?
I wasn't at Motor City.
No, you weren't at that.
When
I was there, I brought my Billy Dogma. I can't remember what else I brought. I had some other comics, but I remember what people usually do when they see the words COVID and cop put together.
Sure.
And then my cover, it's a polarizing reaction. They're either like, they don't want to know, they're disgusted, someone they knew died from COVID, whatever. It's not funny. And then other people are super drawn to it, and that's the only thing they see. Mm-hmm. So it's like this polarizing thing. And actually, oddly enough, I think I did really well at Motor City with COVID Cop versus trying to sell it in New York.
I can see that.
It's like it's almost a regional thing. It's like depending on where you show up, So Sometimes I get some crap for it, which is fair. Of course, you have to read it to find out it's not what you think it is.
Right. Yeah. Well, that
But
people are not willing to have informed opinions.
well, because they're going by the title, and I have to respect that, and that's a learning experience, which is why I'm almost hesitant to call the next. I have like subtitles for my next COVID Cops. I have 2 more, and I don't know. Do I call it COVID Cop or not? And I talked to Mitch Cutler at St. Mark's Comics, who's a retailer. He said, absolutely, you call it COVID Cop because that's what it is. And I'm like, cool, but I want to sell the thing too. So like, it's a catch-22. Like,
yeah, no, I mean, it's something to think about. But I think you're already sold yourself down that road.
That's true. It's true.
I want to interrupt you for 1 second because we were talking about some other stuff, and we're talking about. You mentioned 2-page spreads and not a fan. I am super critical of paneled 2-page spreads. They bother me because people don't know how to do them. Like, and the thing is, a lot of times, most of the time, you'll find a panel 2-page spread is. By the way, Bill loves COVID Cop, so we'll give him some love. Bill loves COVID Cop.
Thanks, Bill.
It is almost always a situation where it's not a cartoonist who decided I'm going to do a panel 2-page spread. It's a writer who says, "Oh, this is great. It's going to go across the whole page. Go ahead, artist, and do it." And so it's done. This book, first of all, this book is really good. It's called The Exorcist at 1600 Pen. It just came out last month. I met it's drawn by Vanessa Del Rey, who I love.
Cool. Yeah.
But here is a paneled 2-page spread.
All right, so the trick behind a 2-page spread is the word balloons.
Right. You got to figure out where they work, and this is done so well.
To all comics, but yes, absolutely.
Well, it's true to all comics. You're right, but especially when you're trying to play with and I've done a bunch of 2-page spreads, so
yeah. But being able to take the eye, bringing the eyes with the balloons in the right spot so they hit the right things, and that's the important part. But the other part that I find has happened way too often in the last 5 years that I've seen, and if it's more than 3 times where I've read a comic and it's a panel 2-page spread that goes across, and the top tier of the spread does not break the spine. It stops.
Right.
At which point I go down to the next line where I need
to break the spine. You need to extend that panel. Absolutely. Of course. If you're doing 3 long tiers, let's just say, for argument's sake, you got to go in the middle. You got to keep cascading over the image, and then
there's a very simple trick to that type of storytelling, to visual storytelling, and it involves balloon placements as well. Left to right, up to down.
Mm-hmm.
And anything that gets in the way of that or breaks that has to be examined. There could be reasons why you're going to do it. There could be reasons why you can do anything, not necessarily good reasons, but reasons.
Right.
And if you just remember that our first obligation is to get the story across the plate, and our second obligation is left to right, up to down, you're going to tell a story. I hate those 2-page spreads where panels don't break the margin. But back in the letterpress days, you would hope and pray that those pages were printed anywhere near next to each other and would line up right. Today it's a little easier. I don't think it's a lot easier. It's an obvious mistake, actually.
I want to get to Lights Out in a minute, but one more interlude. Were you in the studio when this was getting drawn?
I worked on the first 2 or 3 issues. What issue number is that?
This is 7.
That's 7. So he was working. I was working with Bill, in 1985. He was one of the people I was assisting back then, and I worked on the first couple of issues. He was using cell paint for background, just flats type stuff, and I did a bunch of that work, as well as working with Howard on Chicken on Flag and Simonson on Thor. I mean, it was kind of insane, and New Mutants as well.
Yeah,
it was insane, and like even but then, you know, some people ask me like, "Did you know you're working on great comics back then?" Yes, I did. Yes, I did. and it,
well, I mean,
it's yeah.
they were, and like I didn't know when I was 14, 15 when this came out, and I knew it was special. I didn't know it was great, but I knew it was special. And I just reread it like 2 days ago. I read the whole thing. But what I wanted to bring out was that there are letter columns in these books. And there's a letter in this issue 7. I'm going to read the letter because you're going to like it. Dear Epic, my anticipation for the next Elektra session is absolutely tremendous. And luckily, the series is only halfway through. I can see the combination of Frank Miller and Bill Sienkiewicz will truly be talked about for years to come by me, if not everyone else. Sienkiewicz's art is incredible response to the phenomenal execution of Frank Miller's riveting and almost abstract writing. Both men show the intellectual and aesthetic aspects of fine art can be synthesized with the modern day comic book. These two are the avant-garde of the comic book industry today. Impressive. Michael Gaydos.
What? There you go. That's awesome.
Michael Gaydos.
Yeah,
Good for him.
absolutely.
Good for him.
Absolutely.
That,
I mean,
and this is 7 years before he published anything.
Yep.
there's no trick to the skills that one needs to tell stories in the comic book format. What you need is experience, and hopefully a couple of crotchety old bastards to say, no, you screwed this up. You know, but we do. The good guys figure it out. The people who are just hacking it out and trying to, you know, earn a living, and I respect that part of it, but they're just doing whatever they can do to make that check. Screw them.
Well, I mean, that was when comics started to become, well, no, not then. One could say, not that Kirby wasn't creating art, but I don't think he was thinking, "Oh, I'm an artiste." You know, I don't know if Kirby
I
ever
don't know
thought
that.
himself as
Did Bill
artiste,
think
but
that he was an artiste?
I think Bill knew he was breaking down walls.
Well, I'm not saying
because he was fighting to do that. Like
That's
he
true.
definitely, when you're putting tape, when you're drawing a cover and then you tear it up and you tape it back together and there's tape on the artwork of a New Mutants cover, that's not normal, man. There's something else going on. You know, like you're an artist, you're an artiste, you know, in the pretentious, you know, understanding of that.
Yeah,
And
but
not that he's pretentious, but he was definitely
Right.
messing with stuff. But I was going to just say, I would almost say the first person to walk in the Marvel door and to go, I'm going to be a little funky about this, was probably Jim Steranko. You know, I think
At
Jim
a time
Steranko
when-
walked in the door.
Yes, whose birthday was just like yesterday or the day before.
Yep.
He's 253 now. Jim broke in doing Jim Steranko stuff under the ruse of no, I'm just finishing Jack Kirby's layouts, and somehow out of that came Jim Steranko, and God, that was great and brilliant at a time when you didn't see that very often. You
Right.
saw better, but not way new.
Yeah.
And
Right.
I admire that.
I think. No, go ahead. Sorry.
One of the things you mentioned, Dean, reminded me of conversations I had with like guys like Joe Rubenstein back in the 70s, people with some classic training. And
Yeah.
they would be talking to cartoonists, their fellow cartoonists, out of the perspective, since they're young, of their classic training. And seeing people merge ideas and having these newer ideas, it's like, you know, you think Hopper could actually do a comic book? I mean, it's like,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so the influences are critical. It's the difference between one artist and another, but the fact of the matter is that the main difference between one artist and another is the fact that they're two separate people, and you've got to encourage inner cartoonist to come out and do his or her thing, because that's where the great stuff comes. Like, as you pointed out, Jim Steranko.
but not to the detriment of serving the story. I think at the end of the day, you have to serve the story, which is why in my latter years, I look at a Sal Buscema and I go, I thank you, Sal Buscema. You told the story. You
Yes.
showed the story.
Oh yeah.
And even when I was a kid and you weren't doing Sienkiewicz, or actually Sienkiewicz inked Sal Buscema, if I'm correct, on Thor, that Simonson, oh wait, was it Simonson? Whatever.
Somebody else.
But I think he, or John Buscema, but he definitely, they worked together, Sienkiewicz and Buscema's. But like, you know, as a kid, you go, oh, Don Perlin, you know, Sal Buscema drew the comic. I may not want to pick it up, whatever, because it was standard. It felt standard at the time. But when you realize you try to draw that comic that month, you try to draw that Hulk, you know, and you come to respect the job. And you go, oh my God, those guys were saints. They were saviors, you know, of comics. While Bill Sienkiewicz got to Vogue and hang out, and Jim Steranko got to add pop art to the, you know, Marvel Comics and rock Nick Fury and add other bits and pieces, you know, and which is great. But I respect both. You know?
I think what you're saying is important. One is, you know, let us absolutely celebrate the spectacular. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with celebrating that. People who change the way we think about the way you can make a comic. Right. That is fantastic. But at the same time, just because someone didn't do that and did the work and put in that time and told and delivered that story to you doesn't mean that they're average or that they're unspectacular. Right.
Right. And again, to honor and serve the story, because sometimes you'll see somebody voguing and you're like, that looks cool, but I don't know what the hell I just read.
Well, it took me a while to figure out what Bill was doing in Elektra. I'll tell you that.
That happens a lot, actually.
I had to grow up a little bit.
That the youngins tend to make. But let us remember that it was Jim Steranko who gave us the 4-page centerfold. And
that's right.
I wish I was there when he explained to Stan, no, you have to put 2 copies of the book together and see the whole 4-page thing. And Stan would probably say, well, who's going to do that? Whereas Martin Goodman, who was the publisher at the time, probably thought, oh, they'll buy 2 copies. Cool.
Right. But meanwhile, like, I don't know, EC Comics in the 1950s, oh my God, what was going on there? Talk about a reaction to the times, and like Bernard Krigstein, you know, doing that famous Nazi subway story, and changed the way people thought about storytelling just in 7 pages or something? Like
in 1 page. That first page changed the world. Absolutely. The fact that people, EC was very strict. I mean, there's full script. If you're doing the Kurtzman books, you got the lettered boards with Kurtzman's layouts on them, and that's where you started your drawing work. And a lot of the stuff was overwritten by today's standards, because in the early 50s, everything was overwritten because nobody trusted anybody or something. But with all those constraints, they produced magic.
Yeah.
It just produced magic. And guys like Krigstein, for whom I have an enormous respect, never met the man, saw that as an opportunity to go do something better. You know, maybe he was just frustrated at the, 6-panel grid or whatever. That's fine. You're a creative, artistic person. It's okay to get tired and try something new, or just try something new because it keeps your juices flowing.
Yeah.
You know, as long as the story comes across the plate.
That's right.
All right.
That's right.
We're gonna get to another story. I want to give a shout out because somebody is watching us on Twitch tonight, and they're giving us great comments. Apparently, they're enjoying our facial hair situation here. And apparently I have the man's beard and you guys have a ways to go.
I'm more of a, well, I'm doing more, I lean, not these days, but I used to be more of a George Michael, You know,
Yeah,
kind
I
of
understand that. You're a little bit long today.
a little long today. That's all.
I
Well,
want
also
to
with your music background and
That's right.
let's
your multimedia background. I think
let's let's talk about Lights Out.
Yes.
I want to. This is you have two crowdfunding projects going on at the same time. One is all you. One you're a part of this one. This
Right.
one is on BackerKit, and I want to go ahead and let people see the trailer for this because it's
Oh,
really
absolutely.
cool. So let's do that.
I'm gonna run to the bathroom on that one. I'll be
All right,
back.
You got a minute.
Iron Eyes Geese presents Lights Out. Lights Out brings you stories of the supernatural and the supernormal, dramatizing the fantasies and the mysteries of the unknown.
when I Dean's back. When I first saw that, the first ad saying that you guys were doing this, my first thought was, well, who the hell remembers Lights Out except for me and Bill Cosby? And I realized rapidly it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. But also, it is Tom Akel, so that's the answer.
And by the way, you just said you and Bill Cosby, and the project's called Lights Out.
Yeah.
That's awful.
Yeah.
Anyway,
one of Cosby's first routines. I'm saying this for those out there in viewerland who may not know and are thinking I'm even more of an asshole than he thought previously. One of Bill Cosby's first routines on his first comedy albums was what it was like as a little kid to listen to Lights Out.
Yep.
Oh, really?
Yep, I remember that.
And it was actually
Lights Out.
Yeah, and it was actually a brilliant routine.
Sure.
And
well,
too bad
all
what happened
right.
to the guy.
So when Tom reached out to me, and he was my original editor on the Red Hook at Webtoon, and I've known him since when he was at MTV Geek, and he's great. Tom is
we're big fans of Tom Akel and Rocket Ship Entertainment. Big fans of the kid who does their video designs because I know who he is, and that was a great video they put together. But
it's
yeah,
awesome.
So he reached out to you. This has been going on for a while. We first heard about this in 2013, and now it's finally here, or 2022. I think it was supposed to be out in 2023. So it's been a while.
I wrote and drew my story over 3 years ago.
Right.
Okay. And it was a story I'd been working on for many years, actually. In fact, I tried to write it for Sierra Hahn when she was working on Creepy at Dark Horse years ago, and it didn't. I just had not figured it out. And in fact, I did a comic with Josh Simmons, who's a great horror author in his own right. And so he wrote a story that I drew for that job. But so this sat in the background for many years. And when Tom called me and told me about this project, I was like, sure, of course, I'm game. I would like to try to be a part of this. But what first intrigued me was the idea of it being a radio play, which I love because I write plays, right? So and I grew up like listening to radio. When I wasn't listening to radio plays on the radio, I was listening to Dr. Ruth, basically talking about sex. But I was so enamored by not only actors having to vocalize narrative that you could see in your mind, but also the sound effects were so cool, and they made things more real, right? So, and then so I can't even tell you what those shows were. Maybe there were reruns of this show. I don't know. It's possible, and they always spooked me. And I think one of the things that radio plays do well is try to scare you or try to capture your, like make you gasp or, leave you on a cliff in some way. And narratively, just create such suspense, And recently, and I've mentioned this in an interview, Warren Ellis did a great, produced 6 episodes of something called The Department of Midnight, which actually scared me. There were a couple of episodes where some of the ideas went to a place that I never considered and spooked the hell out of me. And it was so well made. And also, I have worked on another radio play called Life with Althar. Althaar, Althar, Life with Althar, produced by Gemini Collision Works, which is Ian W. Hill and Barrett Johnson. And Ian was the director of my first 2 plays, and I play a character named the Weasel once in a while on this radio play podcast, which hopefully will be wrapping up soon. There was a little bit of a delay with COVID and everything else. But I think they have the scripts, and they're going to be producing the finale soon. But I love this art form so much.
I am a huge fan of radio drama and of full cast audio drama. Huge fan. I had done some of it. As both a producer or a writer and even a director. A couple of years ago, I even did another voice. I haven't done voice acting in a long, long time, for the Frankenstein's Mobster audiobook. And
oh, cool.
It is so much fun because it ties into something that is part of my comics life. As a performer in a radio drama, we draw pictures we give layouts to pictures for the listener to finish drawing.
Absolutely.
And that is an incredible thing. It's not something you'd think about unless you were really intimate with audio drama. Luckily, they've kept it alive in England. All of these years, there's been some spectacular stuff. There's a couple of great Modesty Blaze stories out that way. It's just wonderful stuff. Yeah, I love it. I can't begin to tell you how much I enjoy it.
Well, listen, whenever I write a story, I do think about whether it's a play, a movie, a comic book, a prose, or whatever, and you can adapt, to the format. But at the end of the day, just a couple of people in a room is what's happening in these stories. You're just getting a couple people into a room, and you're creating a problem that they have to.
Is that the mandate? Like, what was the mandate for this? And I want to come back to this project. This is really cool. Like, one of the things about it is, you can see on the screen here, one of the rewards are the remastered vinyls of the audio plays of the radio plays. Some of the ones from Lights Out, which included actors like Boris Karloff, and so that's part of it. But then you guys went ahead, a whole bunch of current creative cartoonists went ahead and made short stories that come together and created a graphic novel that goes along with this project. So what was the mandate that was given to you?
I don't remember the original mandate, but my gut says that there was an idea that whatever you produced in comic book form, could be a possibility that this too in the future could be turned into a radio play.
Okay.
Whatever I produced.
So that was in the back of your head too?
At least it was when I was finessing mine, remember? Because I had already an idea. But I always write, well, that's not true. I was gonna say I always write low budget anyway. But I've also gone cosmic and weird as well. But okay. Yeah. So but yeah, I definitely was thinking, ooh, this could possibly be a radio play as well, or adapted into one. And so I do think that there was the idea that in the background that maybe the comics that were created for this could possibly be turned into or adapted into radio plays. And there's such a diverse crew of creators in here, as you can see on the screen. I, and I actually read Warren's story, which is so good, and I'm so glad to see him writing comics again,
Yes,
because
me too.
I miss his voice.
Me too. I miss
I'm very
his,
excited about.
I miss his attitude, but when you say attitude, people think of something negative. Not in this case. He has a specific attitude that he brings to
Absolutely.
his work that is wonderful in a story. Just wonderful.
And
He's the
you know
guy-
what?
I'm sorry, but isn't he the
Yeah,
guy
go
who
ahead.
wrote the Fin Fang Foom story where he's walking around Manhattan bitching about whether he's supposed to be wearing his diapers or he's not supposed to be wearing his diapers? What a great scene!
I mean, yeah.
Um,
But speaking of like somebody ripping stories from the headlines, like a lot of well, not a lot, but definitely some things that influence Warren Ellis are from certain headlines. That's for sure. I don't know where he's getting these stories. Like he's really referencing things that are actually being explored or was uncovered. And then it's clearly a bug in his bonnet where he has to figure out, well, what's the story behind that?
right.
And I love stuff like that.
I'm excited about this group. I'm excited for your story. I'm looking forward to that. I'm excited for Leanne Krasik's story. To see her, I know she's excited for a movie.
I'm excited because it's asking her to do something that I'm not familiar with.
Which is why she was excited about it. Yeah, she's been talking.
Totally.
I've talked to her about it again years ago, but she was like super excited to play in this realm. She's a great writer. She's super smart about how she goes about things, and she's So I'm excited for that. There's a Justin Jordan story as well, and I'm a huge fan of Justin.
That's great.
And so Kevin is awesome too. Kevin Grievous and Zerks. Javier is going to be on this with Chimera.
Yep.
There's Madeline Roscoe. I mean, this is just a creative team that's been put together for something great. I'm looking forward to this. Again, it's on Backer Kit. It's in the comments, so you can go and grab it there. So, but yeah, this. I'm excited for this.
For its release.
I believe it's pretty much. I mean, the book's pretty much done. There's 26 days left. It ends on December 3rd. I don't know about when fulfillment's going to be done, but I don't think it'll be too far out. Because this book has been. I know that Dean and I, we kind of talked about it. You said that some of the other stuff was on the radio play side of things, and why in the holdup from the announcement to the time that.
Yeah, I think because it's a bigger project than an anthology, a comic book anthology.
Right.
It's dealing with, I think it's going to be 5 vinyl records that have 10 shows on them, I believe.
Yep.
And I know that if this does well, there's ideas to produce more, a second anthology, more anthologies, more radio plays, new radio plays. I mean, that would be awesome if that could happen. So
I love the fact that today, in comics, there is a revival or a spotlight on horror storytelling. This does that, but also throws a twist at it, because it approaches it from a different angle, and I like that.
If you're familiar with Lights Out, then you come into it with an attitude, with some concept. Most people are not. And therefore, it is a unique experience. It is something brand new for comics.
Right.
And
Right.
that always turns me on, in case you're sitting at home writing down what it is that turns me on. That will
I'm
always do
doing
it.
that.
Because it's new, it's refreshing. You have to rethink what you're doing and do it better for this particular reason. And I love people addressing those
I mean,
issues.
now we know the origin of Bob's mustache. But I will say this, like, God damn it, man. We've already, all the great horror and crime and science fiction and superhero and romance, they've been done. They happened many, 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 many years ago. They're perennial. They're awesome. We're just adding a little bit of shine on them when we do them today. You know, like there's so much great stuff that has been crafted eons ago, you know, that we're now trying to restrict more and more, even though we have HBO Max and cinema and all this stuff, and we get a little more verbose and gross and everything, but the classics have existed forever. You know, we just have to look back. It's right there, right behind us. There's so much great stuff right behind us.
And most of it's in public domain.
Hello. Right? Hello. Do we have any more comments? So Bob,
yeah.
you posted a comment before from someone who said something about digital. I didn't understand the question or the
All right, so
comment.
that was Bill. He said the artist hears double page splash and goes, "Man, this better be cool original art sale, or it's all going to be digital." Like I'm not going to.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We're also
okay, I get it.
we're also I'm questioning if we were correct. The artist you guys were mentioning earlier from from
EC?
from EC. What was the name?
Bernie Kriegstein.
Kriegstein. Okay. I don't know. Somebody
Yeah.
was giving us a different name. So I get it.
Fantagraphics has a couple of anthologies of
Yeah,
things from
absolutely.
biography.
I think you said Fantagraphics. Yeah, they published a bunch of really cool like best of selects of some of those EC comics, you know, like
That's certainly true. That's
right.
certainly true.
And speaking of serving the story, I mean Harvey Kurtzman.
You know what?
When I was a kid, I didn't get it, but now as like as an older artist, I'm like, oh my God, what a gift.
You know, we have a couple minutes left with you, and I wanted, this is something I didn't get to that I really thought about earlier. Your work with Harvey P. Carr. I mean, in terms of production, probably the person you've collaborated with the most.
Well, no, I would hazard with the Fox because I plotted and drew the stories, but Mark Way did the dialogue, and that's like 10 issues. So that like technically there's more in a way, but whatever.
Technically, there's more because there's 2 graphic novels plus all the rest of the other stuff you did with them.
Well, there's the one graphic novel, The Quitter, and then I did a bunch of stories when we brought him over to Vertigo, and I had done a couple of short stories before, I guess, when he was at Dark Horse.
But definitely over a longer period of time, right?
Yes.
What do you take from that creative relationship?
Oh my God, so much. In some ways it's frustrating because the guy didn't write a comic book script. Okay. He drew a stick figure talking. Okay. So it really challenged you to figure out, well, what the hell am I drawing? And you didn't even have to stick to his panel arrangement because if I wanted to explore more or less, I had that latitude, right? So really it was about reading his script and what he was saying and what kind of visual value could you add to that story. And I learned early on that was the challenge, at least for me, from my understanding of comics. Now, some people could just draw him talking, a talking head. Yo, what's up, Mark? A talking head, and fair enough, whatever. And actually, those kind of comics bother me. Okay. You might as well just write an essay. Why are you drawing a comic if it's just going to be a talking head? But whatever. Okay, fine. So, you know, that's what push my buttons. How do I make this interesting looking for me to not only want to draw it, but you hopefully for you to want to read it, again, serving a story and trying to, it kind of was like some weird kind of boot camp. I don't think Harvey intended that for me to be in some kind of comics boot camp, but it made me think about what the hell am I going to draw here? That's not just talking to somebody, I was aware of those Art Crumb comics. I was aware of the earlier works, and some people, would kind of swing a dead cat over their head and see what happened, and other people just kept it safe, and that's fair, and I was trying to figure out what I wanted to write, how I wanted to draw a comic through Harvey's stories, and so I hope that when you read a Picard story that I drew, you can see a difference. Okay. But also, I don't want you to think, oh, Dean drew this. I want to be invisible. I want you just to enjoy that story. Like, I don't want to be, flash dancing around, a Harvey Picard story. I remember one of the criticisms that came through when I drew The Quitter was like, oh, this looks a little bit like a superhero comic. It doesn't at all. But I get what they meant because they'd never seen someone actually try to employ action in a Harvey Picard comic,
Sure. I get that.
But also the biggest takeaway for me, and then that I'll wrap that up, is he made me listen more. His ear alone is what recommends Harvey Picard comics. These were not people that spoke grammatically correct. Okay. They spoke in real terms, and he honored that reality in his comics. So it made me listen more when I hear other people talking in my autobio comics. Now, when I'm doing my Dean Haspiel deep cuts, it's all very stylized. Okay. It's almost like I do that thing that's a no-no, which is like, oh, they all sound the same. I try to sometimes maybe add a different voice to a character, but I know how stylized it is. But if I'm doing autobio, I'm trying to honor the way that other person talks, and he illuminated that to me through his own work, which it was important.
Yeah, and fascinating, by the way. It's really interesting.
Absolutely.
To walk away with that experience, in addition to the work that you've produced, that's really nice.
No, absolutely. And you don't listen. You grow up reading Stanley's voice. What a great voice, he had.
Sure.
It was our comics Shakespeare. And
literally,
yet,
in some cases,
literally.
yes,
right? Like, so, but I don't know, man. And yet, what keeps life and art interesting to me is the new kids on the block. Like,
right.
there's this guy, Monty Keene, who I don't know what the hell he's doing, but I love it. Like, it's got such energy, and like, I don't know, like, what I'm trying to break in my work is I'm crafting too much. I'm considering too much. And I wish I could just trust my instincts and just, be spontaneous and just draw, keep turning pages. And I haven't figured that out yet, but I know it's in the back of my mind that I want to do that, or I want to get there where I'm just literally just turning pages with my art,
An editor has to trust the talent to deliver and to deliver good stuff. So my feeling is, if and editors are cynical bastards, could get around to trusting you, so can you.
Thank you.
I want to remind everybody that if you go into the comment section, you can find both these projects that are there. You can follow Dean on whatever social media you're on, because he's on all of them. Dean Haspiel Art. I'm excited for both of these projects. I'm looking forward to the next thing you do after these things, because like I said early on, you just keep keep getting better and just keeps, grabbing me with story after story, and I appreciate it.
Dean,
Thanks so much, Bob.
Let me tell you the reason why I like your stuff generically, from an overview. It's because of you. I don't know anybody in this world who's had more influences than you and has brought them to the table. We all have a lot of influences, and some of them are pretty subtle. You know what you're doing, and you know what to look at through our vast popular cultures, and you make that work. And that's about as much sucking up as I'm going to do. But that's the reason. That's the reason.
I appreciate it, and I thank you. And it occurred to me tonight. It was bugging. I always wondered what it was like to work with you if you were my editor. And I realized you're an editor, but what you are is a director.
Yeah. Well, that's why he brings in playwrights.
Or a dictator. I'm not sure which.
Or a dictator. but you, once you can identify, you're like the Rick Rubin of comedies.
Now there's a beard.
Wow.
No, that's the beard. Like you understand, you get to know the artist, and then I think it's not about
no, but you know what? I've heard Rick talk, and you're right. That's a really good analogy.
It's a compliment. I'll say
no,
that.
It is.
I'm complimenting.
It is, but it's a compliment, but it's also accurate. There is that. And the stories that I've heard and the way things worked, and I know people who work with him and I've talked to him outside. I don't share that, but Mike was the kind of editor where, he would let you go and do your thing. Like, here's the idea. Okay, good. Let's go for it, until you kind of moved away. And then he had to get you back in, like, hey, let's this is a good experiment, but let's come back to tell the story.
Right.
That's true. Awesome. There's a push-pull, because you want to push the creator, the creative person, into doing the best work with the story that you've already agreed to. But you don't want it to get too personal, because, again, you want to tell the story. You've got to get the story out. I there's a certain amount of finesse there that I've always enjoyed about the job. But there, no editor in any medium, and I've edited in quite a few, is worth shit compared to the talent that he works with. That's it. If I was working with a moron, you'd get moronic work.
Yeah.
Luckily, I've been able to sort of see the morons and see past them.
I'm waiting for your autobiographical memoir.
Geez. You draw it?
Do I draw? No, I don't want to. I want to read it. I want to read prose.
We'll work on that. We'll work.
Dean, all right. Our friendship over the decades, and I met you when you were just a small child, is of great value to me. I can't even begin to tell you.
Well,
this
thank you,
conversation we've had these past almost 2 hours now, it's a highlight of my week. Granted, this wasn't a great week.
That's true.
It would have been the highlight of a much better week as well.
I could have been. We could have been talking about places to buy eggs for a cheaper price for 2 hours.
I'm closer to the Canadian border than you guys.
All right. Thanks, Dean, for being here.
Dean, thank you.
We're gonna let you go.
Hope to see you soon.
And everybody, go ahead and back those projects, because you're gonna want them.
Thanks, Bob and Mike. Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure and an honor. All right.
It's a pleasure.
All right, Mike. We're gonna wrap this up, but we have guests lined up. We've even been doing some stuff on the show, scheduling some other things. I can tell you that next week on Tuesday, we're going to be back on Tuesday. we will be having Joe Eisma on the show. He's got a new project that he's working on coming out. We're talking about his other stuff. We're definitely going to ask him when Morning Glories is coming back because that will piss him off. So
that's why we're here.
So next Tuesday, Joe Eisma is going to be on the show, and the following week, we have Chip Mosher of Distillery Media. We can ask him how to pronounce his company's name. He's going to be on the show. We're going to talk about his career. He's very excited. So folks, stay. You're going to want to tune into that show because Chip is excited to ask Mike a lot of questions. So that should be quite the episode.
Chip is one of those guys who's out there and has been for over a decade finding new pathways for comics. And
it's gonna be a great conversation. Also, join us next Tuesday for Joe. Join us the following Tuesday for Chip. We're also, I think, gonna get somebody else in there on a Thursday coming up, and we have people backed up later on that. I also want to remind everybody to subscribe to the show you're watching this on so you get notified when we go live on those dates. And also go to popculturesquad.com and you'll see on the right hand side there's a subscribe to our newsletter. Please do that. We're going to bring the newsletter back because in these days where all the social media is out and crazy and we don't know what's going on, we're going to make sure you know what's going on and what's on Pop Culture Squad and what shows are coming up via our newsletter much more frequently. So please do that.
All right. Thank you, folks, for all being here. As we say every week, we truly appreciate it. The folks who appear on these little podcasts appreciate it. This is where you get to learn about all the really neat new stuff that, goes beyond what's in next month's Spider-Man.
Yep.
This is the place.
Thank you all for being here. We really appreciate you. We appreciate you being here. We will be here for you. We're not gonna stop doing this. Whether you watch or not. Well, please watch though.
Thanks, folks.
All right. We'll see you later.
Good night.
I have to give me an outro. Sorry. We'll try that one more time. All right. We will see you later.
There's a button.
This has been a production of the Pop Culture Squad Network. PopCultureSquad.com. How do you nerd?